All right, welcome back to the Fitness and Family Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Ashley, and I am so excited for our next guest. Becca is a married Southern lady who currently resides in Georgia. She has a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies in Social Science, Master of Science in Family Studies. She's a certified family life educator, 200 plus registered yoga teacher, and self defense instructor. That is a lot, but honestly, I love it because it sounds like me, and we love to stay busy. We love to learn and we love to teach people. So I cannot wait for her to talk about her business as it dives into relationships, food, fitness, finances, and more. Welcome, Becca. I'm so happy we were able to connect.
I'm so excited to be here.
I love it. So, first, what I want you to do is introduce yourself to our listeners.
So, I am Becca, and I am through and through who I am. And I've done that just through my education, through how I kind of learned to live in my life. And I love adventure. I love information, and I love being able to apply the information in healthy ways.
Terrific. And how long have you and your husband been married for?
We have been married for just over 3 years. So we got married in March of 22.
Okay, awesome. Well, perfect. So let's dive into this. So, are there any moments in your childhood that may have led you down the path you are at with helping others?
As I really have thought about kind of how I've ended up where I am, because I used to be the one that I really didn't like sitting there having these conversations about relationships or what they were, those. But what I learned over time was I really grew up in a space that allowed me to have a healthy relationship. It allowed me to express myself. Like, even when we were kids, our opinions weren't put down, our opinions were just as important. And so, as I kind of figured that out, it was like, oh, this isn't the same for everybody because we all grew up in different spaces. And so, as I kind of figured that out and hit my education and then hit my career, and I think really in my career, I started to really see, I worked with a lot of middle schoolers. And so I really saw how they pulled from our television shows, how they pulled from our
Oh,
movies, and how,
mm-hmm,
and so you saw the impact of, wait, y'all are really pulling from places that may not be giving you, they're giving you romanticized information of like,
mm-hmm,
oh, here's an abusive relationship, but it can look romanticized in a video or in a movie. And so,
mm. And it's getting worse and worse in this day.
as I kind of saw some of that, and then as I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really date much. And it wasn't because it was more because I was interested in my own passions and my own drives. And so when I kind of saw that, and then I've been around people that can't survive without a relationship, it was like, wait, but what about the relationship with yourself? What about how that affects everything else? And so that's where a lot of this came from. And it led me down the path of really wanting an education that could back a lot of that and could help me be able to share it with others, but not just from an opinion standpoint, but from a research and education and a wait, here's what you can do that might really help you have a healthy relationship with others because you have a healthy relationship with yourself. And so I ended up more in the social sciences because I started as I wanted to be a chef and own my own restaurant. But that doesn't contribute very well to be a successful chef. You have to work the really odd hours. You have to work the
Mm-hmm.
hours that are family time or things like
Yeah.
that. And I spent a summer working at a nice restaurant, and I got to see the family side of the owner of the restaurant too, because they were really good friends of ours. And it was like, wait a second, he might only get to see his kids for 20 minutes, two
It's
hours
so true, right?
at weird hours. And I was like, I don't want that. I really want to be able to be involved more on my terms, not on the terms of to be successful, you
Mm.
have to be present. Like you do. That's just how the restaurant industry works. And not to say there aren't some great chefs that have family, but you got to have that balance. And
Well, you have
so
to work so long to get to that point too. Like I'm a Top Chef Bravo TV lover, and that's what they always talk about is the sacrifices that they make. But how long are you willing to make those sacrifices? And they may never happen because how many of those chefs didn't have failed relationships because if they're cooking, they want to think about themselves to get. So yeah, I can understand why you directed yourself differently.
and so I kind of landed where I am, and then I've crafted it into where I am now of like, okay, I
Hmm.
really want to be able to work from home and have a schedule that can be conducive for me to be really involved with our kids. And
Yeah.
so my husband was on the same page with that, and he thought it was just as important as I did because it was really one of my non-negotiables going into our relationship. And so that's where I found myself with this, but I also found it as this big drive of like, wait, a lot of people, the way that relationships are presented to us, a lot of times it's presented as you're selfish when you're taking care of yourself. But that's not the truth.
Right.
If you don't start with yourself and start with having that healthy relationship, healthy understanding of what you are, then
Mhm.
really not able to give everywhere else in your life.
Hmm. That really does resonate because just saying how you like you've been married for 3 years. When I started dating my husband in college, I did not want to get into a relationship until I was mentally ready for myself. I was mentally and emotionally ready. So to say like my junior year, I had in my brain, I said, I want to find myself. I did my junior year and I found myself what I wanted to be. And then once I found that person, lo and behold, my husband, who we actually dated freshman year, came back into we came back into each other's lives. I should just say that. But then through all of that, I was always determined. I was like, I want to dance professionally. I know what I want to do career wise. And he was with me on that. He's like, you do what you want to do with dance. We live separate from each other for like 2.5 hours away for I don't know, 4 years. When we got married, 6 months of marriage, we were separated from each other, living different places. But we knew at some point we would be together because we were comfortable with ourselves. We trusted each other. We trusted that things would work, and they worked. We didn't do this fighting against what we want our lives to be because we established that beforehand.
Oh yeah.
So I love how you stress like be comfortable with yourself, love yourself before
It's
know what you want. Yeah.
It's important. And I've watched so many of my friends or just those in my life of like, they just think they have to have this relationship for them to be validated and not be alone. And it's not to say I didn't have really lonely moments. Because so
Mhm.
between the last guy I dated and my husband, I was single for almost 8 years because I just wasn't willing to settle for just a relationship. And I
Mhm.
was working on my career and I was happy with where I was, and just the right guy didn't come in.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that there weren't moments that you find yourself really, really lonely,
Yeah.
but that's where I found that I really like to have an outlet of like some kind of class I go to. So, like in that time of being single, I went and started painting door hangers because there was a lady that she at the time was doing like workshops where you picked your door hanger and then you got to come paint it.
Oh,
And so I did it.
fun.
Oh, that was fun. And so now I live close to a floral boutique. And so I go to her flower shops and do the flower classes, whether it's just doing flowers or flowers
Right.
and painting. But it's having that outlet of something to look forward to. Or I would plan trips to go see my sister or one of my really good friends at the time of like,
Mhm.
well, things to look forward to, things to count on, of like, okay, these 3 weeks are going to be really hard, but then I get to go. Me and my sister drove down the coast one time. And so it's like, okay, and so I'm going to get to
Mhm.
go do that.
Mhm.
And so it's
Mhm.
just having things to count on, but it's having things to count on that you love. And I don't think you find that when you haven't found that healthy place with yourself.
Yep. No, that makes complete sense. So how did you get into the yoga then? Did the yoga happen kind of after everything, or is that kind of like a hobby outlook that you kind of found during this whole discovering process? I don't know why I use my hands. I use my hands when I talk.
So yoga kind of came as I had done some of it through athletics throughout the years. And then when I worked in my previous job, I really I did a yoga for kids. And so I incorporated it when I worked with the middle schoolers. We would start with 10 minutes of yoga before we sat down and talked about relationships. And so it helped them have movement, move, not just be in their chairs for the entire time that I was with them. And so as I progressed with that, I really just decided to add in, let's go for the full thing. And so I went in to do
Oh, you
a
dove deep.
200-hour instructor. And so I did that. And then I've done some like online classes here and there. And then I taught at a jiu-jitsu gym for a little while and incorporated it into those classes. So just kind of like not necessarily let's sit down and have a 2-hour yoga class, but I've figured out how to let's incorporate these movements to help you in how we're going to sit still for now for 30 minutes. Because we've moved our bodies and released some. Or in jiu-jitsu, it's here are ways that we stretch our bodies so that we're ready to move here. And so
Mhm.
really that incorporation into other aspects of yoga. And then
Oh,
I've done
that's
some
good.
classes. And then I've done some classes where they've been online. I've done some of like doing just an online get together
Yeah.
to let people kind of just so that I'll do the yoga.
Oh, for
Because it
sure.
helps hold you really accountable.
Oh, for sure. And I like that how I mean, you use the physical elements of yoga, but then just with the kids using the mental aspect too, which is
Mhm.
so incredibly great for little kids. Because it's funny when I'll do like workouts at home with my son, he's 5.5. He will do some downward dogs with me and some planks. But now it's kind of funny how much they grasp because the other day I was going to go teach a fitness class and he's like, Mommy, make sure you have everybody do push-ups and crunches. So just like doing what you were doing with them just for those 10 minutes, how much they that will actually probably benefit them decades down the road.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
I love that. All right. So what I want to get into is your business. Your business is called Stacked Intent. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. How did this idea start? And really, what is it about?
So the idea started since I was little, I've always wanted to have my own business in some way or another.
You've
So
been
when
an
I was
entrepreneur
little,
from like a little kid.
when,
Let's be honest.
when I was little, I really wanted to own my own restaurant. And so now it's morphed into as I went to school, got my education, and then I worked as a county extension agent for 6 years. And then as my husband and I were making our move after we got married, it was like, okay, well, I guess now's the time to try to launch my business so that by the time that we have our family, I can kind of have the really hard work underground. Like, not saying it's not going to get easier or and there's still not hard, but like the foundation really, really built. And so that's where my business came from. It's the things that I love so much and the things that I think that are so important and the whys of what people really need to see to really see that being their authentic self helps everybody else in their life. And so that's kind of where Sacked Intent was born from. And it was born from giving you resources, courses, worksheets. I have a blog, an email, and a podcast that all give you different formats of it. I've got an upcoming retreat so that you can do some of it in person and
Oh, fantastic.
solidly think about it for 3 days. And but my biggest goal with all of it is not to just give you information, but it's to give you information that you can start to implement small changes or see ways you can shift to really start to have a true version of yourself that has a foundation of being healthier and happier.
And you truly hit on all of those different topics. So you have different like worksheets or courses into relationships. You said the food, fitness, finances. Kind of, how do you discover people when they come visit or they come website or they reach out and they talk to you? Do you kind of find that people are like, well, I came for the fitness, but truly I needed to come for something else. You had me discover something else. Do you like, can you explain a little more into that, kind of what you discover with
Yeah,
people?
I've had that happen because sometimes people don't look at relationships as one of those as being important. And then not important, but the one with ourself. Because we're preached so much in our society that when you take care of yourself, you're being selfish. And so it's helping flip that script of no, taking care of ourselves and learning to stay true to ourselves is beneficial to everybody. I think one of the biggest ones that I've had that I can recall is like I had a workshop and it was a self-defense workshop, but in correlation with healthy self-relationship. And one of the individuals that came was so against the word boundaries when we started the conversation.
Oh,
And by the end of it, they truly started to understand why the boundaries had been put in place, why the
mhm,
boundaries were important. And so it's helping understand that some boundaries are not always a bad thing. And there's
right.
reasons for them. And so it's sitting down and being able to explain that. And so she came in so opposed to it. But by the end of it, she was like, oh, I really understand this. I really see why these are important boundaries and why I can have some of my own boundaries as
Mhm,
well. And so that's been one of the big ones to really see is just some of that transition of people being very standoffish about certain topics like boundaries, self-care, um, being able to ask for what you need, just different
mhm.
ways of that, and really watching them be able to change some of the narrative of how they've talked to themselves about those.
Why do you think that people have these, I hate using the word issues, and you could probably reword that for me. Why do you think this happens to people?
I think a lot of it comes from the way that we grew up or a foundation of how we're
Mm,
impacted because a lot of our habits, so like if we look at finances for one, our
mm,
financial understanding and habits of finances start by the age of 7. So by the age of 7, we've actually established most of our financial understanding and habits that we've seen. And so how it was talked about in your house is what's going to influence you as a 35-year-old.
oh, it's
If
crazy. Age 7. Ooh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
start up. I'm gonna start doing things with my son the next year and a half, kind of work how I do things because he's an only child. I gotta watch myself.
Well, and so it's that. And so, but there are things that we can modify, we can change, but it comes with an awareness. And so it it's where we're comfortable. Sometimes people stick in the same, this is where I'm going to live, this is where I'm going to be because this is what's comfortable. And so they don't want to get
Okay.
out of what's comfortable or they don't know where to go. And so those can be the challenges that we face, excuse me,
Mhm,
that we face in having that or overcoming a challenge or really stepping into what you see your true self is. Because
mhm,
if you've not been taught how to have a healthy narrative with yourself, you may have
mhm,
been given a very negative narrative of who you are. And so it's working on those. And a lot of times the people I've really worked with and talked to is you have to be ready to sit through some of the uncomfortable. Because when you're looking for your true self, you are going to be you we can all sit down and say the things we love about ourselves, but you have to be able to look at the flip side too of the things that might not be healthy habits of yourself or might they may not be the stars of what you will want to really look at, but
mhm.
you have to look at both sides to get to that healthy version of you.
That's yeah. I really liked how you explained it because as you're talking about it, of course, I'm like reliving childhood memories, and it's kind of funny how it's like you picture in your head certain things. And I always like picture in my head my parent, like obviously our parents, they grew up in a generation where the Father is the bread maker. Our parents pretty much had joint checking accounts. And I remember like one time my parents sitting at a kitchen table when people still did checkbooks, we still did all of our little balances in a checkbook because internet didn't exist. And um my mom was like, we have like negative dollars in our checking account. And that's when I was doing competitive dancing, which was expensive at that time. And my mom's like, you can't do one of the optional dances. And it was weird because I did not get mad or sad. I'm just like, okay, whatever you guys say, I will do. And like looking back, obviously I would have wanted to do it, but going forward, I'm like, I don't want to live like that. I saw the spending my dad did. He didn't believe in a savings account. Your checking was your savings. So I always told myself, and my husband and I have separate checking accounts. And we do the thing where, and I think that's one of those things where we knew from the beginning, before we got married, we talked about it. We were comfortable about it. And we're like, we will split our expenses. We have one joint account, all of the money, certain percentage comes from work, goes into that. Then you have separate checking, and that's your spending money. Because I always told myself, I'm not going to live like that because I look at that decades already and I still remember this. And we want to give our son every opportunity that he has. So we build up the savings. So it's kind of interesting when you say that. And I know you hear it everywhere that people are like, oh, my childhood. But what do you remember and what can you change? Because you
That,
have the power to change. And
mhm.
it could be just the simplest little thing that can all of a sudden open that door and take you down a whole different path.
And
So
that's
I
big.
love how you explained it.
It's big of like understanding our childhoods, our teenage
Mhm.
years, our adult, they all have huge impacts on us. And so we have to acknowledge what those look like. And we have to acknowledge the habits that we really liked from our childhood, but then the ones that we didn't. I mean, your
Mhm.
finances are a great example of the this you made a choice of this is how you're going to handle it. And so that's become so important of whether you're sharing finances or you're on your own with it. You have to start to build this healthier relationship so that you can navigate through what it looks like.
Perfect. I love it. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about your company, Stacked Intent. Obviously, you developed it. You have your way of doing things. How would you say you differ from maybe like other companies?
I blend things together that make you a whole person. And so I take it takes your relationship, your finances, your nutrition, and it takes how each of those impact you to becoming a whole healthy person. And so that's one of the big focuses for Stacked Intent is really giving you the tools in each of those areas to build a whole healthy you. Because yeah, you could niche down into one of those specific areas, but then
Mhm.
in my opinion, you miss part of it because our relationships are affected by our nutrition, our exercise, our finances. Like they all affect each other in different ways. And so we have to look at the relationship we have with each of those. So that's
Mhm.
one of those areas. And then the other is really make sure that it's not just opinion. I really make sure that there's research that backs a
Mhm.
lot of it
Okay.
because I think that that's important. I believe it's important to have an opinion, but also kind of see how it historically has affected in different areas, whether it be nutrition of why it's important, whether it be why should you go exercise. Like
Mhm.
exercise is one of those that can be so simple, but so important. And so that's where I make it a little different. I make sure that the research is integrated
Mhm.
in the conversation, in the blog posts that are written, in the resources that are provided. And so that's one of the places that I would say would make Stack Content a little different.
Perfect. And I honestly never did realize I've been since I've been doing these podcasts, and you know what, I'm not a pro by no means at a lot of stuff. I know workouts. That I can say I know, but just talking to a variety of people and just hearing how I never realized, hitting on finances again, how much your physical health affects your finances
Hmm.
and how that, I mean, it's amazing how everything is so intertwined with each other. And I don't think a lot of us realize that until we're actually willing. I always say it's when you have that light bulb aha moment and you're like, oh, and when that clicks, isn't it just amazing to see when it clicks for somebody?
It is
And
pretty cool.
then it's almost like this like weight is lifted and they were wanting to listen to you, they're trying to listen to you, and then when it clicks, it's like everything just makes sense for them. But like with your company, you're always there. It's when they are actually ready
Mm-hmm.
to open up to you.
Very much.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've loved this conversation. I loved everything about your company, everything about really how you got to this point, because not many people like to take, really how they grew up and really just expose it and make it into their company. So you're doing truly just a wonderful thing. I'm so glad that you were able to hop on this podcast and talk about it. So, last question. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? And then same for your future self.
Think if I could tell my younger self one thing, it's stay true to really discovering what you want to be and how you want to be it. And stay true to yourself. If a relationship doesn't feel right, if a friendship doesn't, and that's friendships, other relationships, it doesn't just have to be romantic. Stay true to that and stay true to seeking the opportunities. When opportunities present themselves, take advantage of them because you don't know when they'll happen again. And
Hmm.
then I think I'd be very similar to my future self of like when relationships really you outgrow them or they need to be pruned away for any kind of particular reason, allow it to happen so that your growth can continue to happen and finding what that authenticity is and finding what that healthy looks like. And it would be the same with opportunities. When opportunities present themselves, if they fit
Yeah.
at the time, take advantage of them and see where they're
Yeah.
going to take you.
I love it. That's really just wonderful words. I think I'm one to take every opportunity. If it doesn't work, I'm like, well, it didn't work, but at least I went for it. It was like every dance audition I ever went for. Okay, the calves. Like my early 20s did not work for professional dancing. I hit my prime in my mid 20s, but many people would have stopped. But I just continued on. I'm like, I could care less. You can have a full-time career. Look at the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. Obviously, they're all over the place now with whatever they went platform streaming service they went to, but how many of them have their full-time jobs now? They're getting the professional cheerleaders you find are getting a little bit older and older too when the bodies want to take it. But you take those opportunities. You may not get it the first time, you may not get the second time. You just always go, go, go. Oh, I love it. All right. So where can people find you? Website, you said website, podcast, blog. Just let all of our listeners know where they can get more information about you.
Okay, well, the website is stackedintent.com. And so you can find my blog there. You can find the course suite. You can find the resources. You can find the information about the retreat. You can pretty much find everything there. You can sign up for the weekly newsletter there. And
Mhm.
then Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I'm Stacked Intent on all of the platforms.
All right, straightforward, stacked intent, easy to find. Well, I encourage all of you to visit her website. I've already been on it. And like I said, I love it. It is very insightful information. So, and people can get like free worksheets and stuff, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, well,
So
then there you go.
there's a course suite part, and those are the courses, and there is a free course, the first one, and then there's a free resources, and so there's different downloadable templates.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Becca, for joining us on the Fitness and Family podcast.
Thank you
I'm
for
sure, yeah, I'm sure if we have any other topics that come up in the future, you'll be making a visit again. So for everybody, make sure you like this episode, download it to listen to it again. There was a lot of information and follow the Fitness and Family podcast. And I will see you again. All right, bye.